Greetings, citizens of the world. We are Anonymous. Today we are going to talk about trigger words and how they are used against us. There is a peculiar set of words polluting the air in recent decades. I'm sure you've noticed when watching TV, which is a terrible idea, but we'll get to that later. Or perhaps when you were in school, or maybe in daily conversation, the use of these words and their particular capability to bring a conversation to a screeching halt. You may have also noticed the even stranger behavior of those around you when you choose to neglect to pay the expected societal homage to these words. When you did so, did the others sputter? More commonly found, did they explode into anger and attempt to punish you? Did they threaten the law? I had all three happen, and you may have as well. What are these words, then? What is it about them that makes people behave so strangely? Well, let us list the words off, and you'll have an idea. The first group we have are the isms, varying and growing in number daily. Racism, sexism, communism, liberalism, conservatism, Satanism. This last term, Satanism, now growing defunct, but was in wide use in the media as a fear tactic up through the 1990s. Secondly, we have the phobias, which have taken special prominence in the media as of late, with the heavy pushing of the gay and transsexual agenda. Homophobia, Islamophobia, transphobia, for example. Lastly, we have oddball words, which don't fit into the usual method of construction for trigger words, as they were inserted into the public conscience in earlier decades. The majority of them are related to WWII, as it so happens. Conspiracy, Nazi, Holocaust, Hitler, bigot, anti-Semitic, and to a lesser extent, un-American, unpatriotic, these last two mainly being used as a weapon in politics. Did you feel a twinge when reading these words? Did you automatically feel discomfort when reading the word racism, or perhaps the name Hitler? I certainly still do, even though I have come to recognize the presence and purpose of these words. Perhaps that is a testament to the power of this conditioning. On simple utterance of the word racist, we, the white population, have been conditioned to wince, to brace ourselves for impact, to numb ourselves for the inevitable browbeating we are about to receive. It was only the day I refused to wince, refused to pull back in the face of that word, refused to offer myself up as sacrifice in the face of that word racist, that I realized the extent that these insidious words have been worming their way across the European conscience, leaving trails of dark slime in their wake. The conversation went something like this. I'd rather not go to Africa. It isn't really interesting to me. So you're a racist! And what if I am ? From there, the other person descended into what I can only describe as incoherent sputtering, which progressed to yet more incoherent raves, and then stunned silence, as if their brain was not able to process a lack of concern for catering to the political mantra du jour. This sort of unnatural reaction is what I then sought after, plucking out the words that were programmed in this way by testing the reactions I would garner from them. When we look at the official definitions and histories of each term, it becomes even more clear wherein the conditioning lies. For its ubiquity and seemingly boundless utility, let us take racism as our first example. Merriam-Webster gives the following definition: any action, practice, or belief that reflects the racial worldview, the ideology that humans are divided into separate and exclusive biological entities called races, that there is a causal link between inherited physical traits and traits of personality, intellect, morality, and other cultural behavioral features, and that some races are innately superior to others. This definition is frighteningly general, simply a variety of different views tacked together into one monolith of ambiguity. It could be an action, or simply a thought you hold inside your head. That might be anything from the belief that there exists a biological difference between the races, to the mere acknowledgement that, say, people from Africa tend to have darker skin. According to this definition, if you believe that Africans have darker skin than Europeans, and that perhaps that trait is inherited genetically, you have just committed the grievous sin of racism. You may say OH. There at the end, there is a qualifier that says and that some races are innately superior to others, but I urge you to look at the beginning of the definition, which clearly states any action, practice, or belief that reflects the racial worldview, the laundry list that follows being any of its possible incarnations. If you look at other definitions, you will find much the same ambiguity, and I refer you to this wonderful documentary that does a much better job with the term racism than I ever could in my limited space. Racism in America Today. It is important to note how the word racist is used exclusively against those of European heritage today. It is perfectly acceptable to be an African supremacist, or perhaps a member of La Raza, who believes that they have the right to conquer the southern United States. Although I will not argue against their causes here, as I quite frankly don't care about them, it should be transparent to you that those groups receive no ire from those who would be most likely you call you a racist. Even more sinister is the history of the word, having its origin in Bolshevist Russia, by none other than Leon Trotsky himself. The author of the word speaks volumes in its own right. Our next example is of equal importance, and far more relevance in the media as of late. If you are the type of unfortunate soul who watches the news on cable television, you may have noticed the sudden pushing of the transgender community. How strange, this phenomenon. 10, even 5 years ago, transgender was not the accepted term. Transvestite or tranny was. Transgender was step 1 in the manipulation of our perception of this issue. Similar tactics were taken on the racism front. Note the transition of Negro greater than Black greater than African American. So effectively done that the original term makes you cringe involuntarily, despite its former accepted use. The next step was to heavily push imagery of these abominations, presenting them as normal and attractive, though we know the opposite to be true. And, the final step in the conditioning process, which we have seen happen right before our eyes, is the introduction of the trigger word, the red scare of transsexualism, so to speak. Transphobia. A strange word, transphobia. I doubt many of us could rightfully say we fear for our lives when encountering a man in a dress, though most of us would react with disgust or mirth. Phobia is the suffix they choose. Though, fear, you must be afraid or cowardly if you are speaking out against men in dresses. Cowardly, for feeling disgust at people subverting their most basic instincts. This is little more than a direct attack on your honor, an unjustified one, putting men in dresses as what is brave, good, and desirable, and counting on your desire to be good and brave to deliver you unto their will. It's laughable, and the onset of this new trend has been sickening. Suddenly, everyone is transgendered. They are worshipped for their supposed hardships, and congratulated for mutilating their genitalia. First, they attacked the existence of our race, and now they attack the existence of the genders, the very glue that holds the family together, and by extension the glue that holds society together. Do not be surprised if this term gains yet more prevalence in usage. It's designed as the perfect attack against sanity, targeting all those who believe something as simple as the fact that the genders are biologically different. Madness. Finally, we have the oddball words, which fit into neither the ism nor the phobia categories, while the WWIIR words are the most ubiquitous in this category. Here I am going to tackle the word conspiracy, as I see it as the most unique and insidious of the bunch. It may not carry the same gravity as Nazi or racist, but it's for that very reason that this word is all the more manipulative. What do you think of, when you read the word conspiracy? Perhaps unbalanced men in tinfoil hats, raving about how humanoid lizards control the world. It's laughable, right? But let us look at how it's applied. In the United States, the entire water supply is fluoridated, supposedly for the health of our teeth. Now, say you have done your own research, and come to the conclusion that fluoride is not healthy, and that you would rather not consume it yourself. So you speak out against fluoride, and perhaps find ways to consume water that is not fluoridated. What happens to those who disagree with the fluoridation of the water, though? They are called conspiracists. Now wait. How much sense does that make? Let us take a look at the definition of the word conspiracy. An evil, unlawful, treacherous, or surreptitious plan formulated in secret by two or more persons. Plot.HMM. That doesn't seem a very fitting definition, does it? Plenty of other countries choose not to fluoridate their water. Are they called conspiracy theorists? No, yet go out today and find people who disagree with fluoridation in the U.S. water supply, and I guarantee you they will be labeled conspiracy theorists, whether or not they believe those behind the fluoridation have malicious intent. You see, the word conspiracy takes the very idea of dissent against the status quo and stigmatizes it. Suddenly, instead of an interested and active participant in society and politics, you are labeled insane for simply disagreeing with the government's stance on an issue. While you may have a legitimate concern, the conditioning associated with the word brings imagery of aliens in tinfoil hats to people's minds. It becomes your word against the status quo, and with the aid of this concept, your word is worthless. This issue is so insidious and pervasive that it may be tempting to become hopeless in the face of it. It may be tempting to think, how could I possibly fight this? They have tampered with my very language. But thankfully, while the explanation is arduous, the solution is simple. Do not give way to those who utter these words. Do not offer your brow for a beating at the first utterance of an ism or a phobia. Do not let them shut down the conversation with one silly word. Continue to argue your point in a logical fashion, and if they have an ounce of independent thought in their head, you may manage to make them aware of their own conditioning. We are anonymous. We are legion. United as one. Divided by none. We do not forgive. We do not forget. Expect us.